It's not all sunshine and roses when it comes to cloud computing. And so what we're going to do now is actually go through some of the risks that I need you guys to be aware of, so that before you take up on some of these services, you're making sure you're covered. For the online storage systems, I had a look at DropBox, Box, Google Drive, and Microsoft SkyDrive. And what I looked at for these was their free version, their consumer paid version, as well as the business version. And the things I was interested in were what level of liability cover they gave you. Obviously, fighting with an organisation this big is going to be hard, but if your business is negatively impacted as a byproduct of their service and you have a good case, what sort of protection have you got? The other thing is there's a lot of businesses out there that are using these tools as a backup system. So I wanted to look at what are they like as a backup system? Should you be trusting your entire, your critical files on there? The other thing was encryption. Are the files protected? Can someone actually get access to them or compromise your security? Because that's a big thing when you're putting your data in the cloud. What happens if someone else gets access to it? One of the last ones was content privacy, and this was quite a surprise to me. This is your content that you store actually private to you? And what I found was quite interesting. The last two are file locking and file security, which were things that most people don't consider. File locking is when you're accessing a Microsoft Excel document and someone else on the network goes to open it, it comes up and says, look, that file's in use. Do you want to look at it read-only version? When you're using a lot of these file sharing systems, when I open up the file, and then Sam opens up the file, and then I save the file, and then Sam saves the file, my changes are lost. So if you've got a business where people are accessing these multiple files and you're thinking about using this to get away from a file server, that could create problems for your business. The final thing was file security. What I mean by that is, are you able to lock down who has access to files in this system? Again, if in your business you're used to, if you have a management folder, it's only accessible to certain people. Whereas in these things, typically everything is available to everyone. So I went through, and interestingly, and I've slammed DropBox because most people seem to use it, DropBox for Business has the best liability policy. They'll actually give you up to $100,000 or the value of the past 12 months, but it is $795 a year for 5 users. The rest of them generally will give you a couple of months worth of fees or a maximum of 12 months worth of fees. So if you are thinking of using any of those from a liability perspective, you want to make sure it's the business one, not the free one. The second part of that was backup. Now, DropBox actually says that they have redundant backups throughout the Amazon cloud. And they probably have actually the best backup policy out of all of them. But if you're using DropBox free, there's really no option for you. And you probably, if you're not paying for it, you probably shouldn't expect it. The $99 per year Pro version, which is for personnel, does have options for recovery, but you have to pay for it in advance. Interestingly, if you're using DropBox for Business, they do say they have unlimited file recovery and version history. Now, when you compare that to all the rest said, Box, don't use this as a backup system. We have backup systems in place to protect us, but don't expect if your files are here that you can recover them. Google Drive said that we store revisions of your files for 30 days or 100 changes, but it's not a backup system. And Microsoft SkyDrive said we're not a backup system. Quite literally, don't use this for storing and expecting it to be there. From the encryption perspective, all of them encrypt your files in transit. So when it's from your device to their systems, it's encrypted with what's called SSL. Sorry, I thought you were going to ask a question. However, Google Drives and Microsoft don't have any documentation that suggests that they actually encrypt their files at rest. So in their data center, there's nothing in their policy that actually states that your files are encrypted by them. So if someone were to hack their data center or compromise it, your data could potentially be accessible to anyone. Both Box and DropBox say that they use encryption keys at the point of rest, but both of them have the keys to that, which means that if someone were to raid those facilities and had access to those decryption keys, they could, in theory, look at your content. So storing files on there does not give you any level of protection from someone else looking at it. And in Australia, there's data sovereignty laws, especially when it comes to medical accounts and sort of anyone's confidential information. At the end of the day, you shouldn't be storing confidential information for your clients on one of these services, because ultimately it's accessible by other governments, and Australia is very negative for that, for their data sovereignty law. When it came to the content privacy, as in, do you own your content? Everyone said your content is your content. However, Microsoft stated that data stored on SkyDrive is subject to monitoring by Microsoft. In other words, they're scanning what you put on there. Google said that they index your content to help improve its services. This is partly so they can advertise to you and promote and everything else. But they're looking through what you're storing to see what it is you're storing. Box said they have the right to use, modify, adapt, reproduce, distribute, display and disclose your content to the extent necessary to provide the services and within the terms of the agreement. I don't know what that means, but that pretty much says that they're allowed to do something with your content. The best policy of all was DropBox, who said your stuff is your stuff. And that was it. So there was really, out of all of them again, DropBox is actually coming in as being probably the best if you're going to use it for business, because as far as they're concerned, what you store is yours. We don't need to know about it. The file locking question, remember that's, if I'm accessing a file, will it create problems for someone else? The only solution that offers file locking is Box Starter and Box Business, but I've not tested it, so I can't actually tell you if it works. But they do state in there, when you compare their pricing, that file locking is a feature of those versions. File security is available in DropBox for Business and Box for Business. So ultimately, if I was looking for myself at a way of having data, maybe it's templates or other things for my business shared in a cloud or online version, I'd be going for DropBox for Business, which was, as I said, $7.95 per 5 users per year, and then it's $125 per additional user per year. But again, if you've got people accessing multiple, like the same file and editing them, you can potentially run into conflicts.